Producing?
Yes. Yeah.
Why is that? I don't know.
I don't know. I can't really speak for her specifically, except that I got the impression, let me take a chair up here. I got the impression that, and I think I'm somewhat right about this, and that is that oftentimes, oftentimes when there's no kind of, the show's just kind of going along, the suits sort of don't get involved. Okay. But then when it gets up into the radar, then all of a sudden you get a lot of people. I've worked on shows where the expectation was pretty low, and then the show, through my efforts, and in this case Lauren's efforts, became very popular. And then all of a sudden, people who you've never known before are coming down with lots of opinions. Yes? Yeah.
Thank you for coming, by the way. I've never seen the documentary, but I am watching it right now, and I was just like in tears. I mean, you look at so much we've done in such a short amount of time. It's just really inspiring. So what I was getting at is, like the Brony fandom, the scare rating for some people will probably be one of the most important things that happens to them. Like, hear where people come from, they rediscover themselves.
Come down a little bit so I can hear you. I'm just barely hearing you. So go ahead.
Anyways, so as I was saying, so people becoming Bronies will probably be one of the most important things that happens. Like having worked with the local community for the past 3 years, I had the honor of meeting all sorts of Bronies from all walks of lives and whatnot. So on a micro level, it's like really personal. And recently I started been thinking, what would it appear like on a macro level? So I will skip to the conclusion of making a mystery novel. What if on a macro level, the Brony fandom could be like some strange metaphor for increased technology access? And what I mean from that is, there have been a lot of inspirational fandoms with the same reception and fan works and music and whatnot, but it occurred to me that with the Brony fandom, it seemed they got lucky because there was so much infrastructure available for them to share music. Do you make games? Do you do cosplays and whatnot? And across the world, you mentioned a couple of countries all over, like Honduras, Japan, Vietnam, Chile, Mexico. Those are countries that in the past couple of years didn't have a lot of internet access. So as I said, what if on a macro level, the Brony fandom in the long term could be some strange metaphor for increased internet infrastructure and access all over? Thank you.
Well, I think that's everybody heard that. I think that's let me turn it around just a little bit. I don't think that the Brony fandom could have happened without the internet. So whether in years to come the internet is explained through Brony fandom, maybe. There's so many other things that the internet has done for our civilization. But in this case, I don't think it could have existed without the internet. One of the things which I found really kind of fascinating, there's a shot which I was happy that we had in the show, which was of the guy in Israel sitting alone at a cafe. And one of the images in which a lot of people have is that, Bronies, they're all, they're maladjusted or socially, it's so awkward. They're very kind of, they're alone. They're alone. And, and I was like, okay. But then what I love in that image of sitting there alone at a little cafe is that in reality, goes upstairs, turns on the computer, and through Skype and what have you, has a friend in Singapore, has a friend in so-and-so, and all over the world, which when I was a kid, Frankly, my friends were kids I went to school with. I didn't have any other friends that now there's this, and again, I think this is a sign of the times. Okay, next question. Yeah.
I was going to ask specifically, when you see the show and everything, obviously we love it, and there's something about it that we love about it. But I'm not sure if like on the hub or whatever it's produced on actual media, it's been out and said like, oh, this is exactly for Brony, you know what I mean? So my question is, do you find yourself, you and whatever voice actor, whoever, just thinking like, behind the scenes, like, could we incorporate this for the fans, or for like specifically Brony fans, or is it just like?
Well, and that's a great question, by the way, to ask the writers and to ask, Daniel when Ingram when he's here, when he comes down. I'm sure they do the same thing that I do because I just know how it works. And that is that your first audience were, let's call it, for want of a better word, 10-year-old girls. Well, now all of a sudden that audience is split. You kind of go, oh, well, maybe 10-year-old girls are not going to understand a reference to The Big Lebowski, but the new audience will. Okay? And in Star Trek, I can't tell you how many people come to me now and say, I'll have somebody who would be, let's say, my age, who then is presenting to me their, 35-year-old son or daughter. I'm really sorry. Their 35-year-old son or daughter, who then is presenting to me their son or daughter. So you have grandparent, parent, child. Okay. So you have 3 generations there. Well, that's so. The new shows are organized in that respect. They just are organized in that respect. So when you write, in this case, My Little Pony, you have 2 generations. Yeah.
While filming the documentary, not counting the whole...
A little louder. So
while filming the documentary, the actual filming of it, once you said, okay, I'm pissed at Fox News, we're going to do this now. While actually filming it, what was your favorite or most enjoyable part? Which was the part that really, you had the most fun doing, you had the most good memory? Is there one specific part that you can point to among all the others, either in this documentary or a piece that never made it, and you could say, this was the best part of that for me?
Any film has 3 elements attached to it. The conceptual period of time, where one is going, well, I don't know, what do we have here? The filming time, and then the post-production time. And in all 3 instances, you have to be open enough to say, well, this is what's going to happen, and I'm sure, and what have you, and then you get there and you kind of go, whoa, this is really different, and okay, well, then we're going to cover this, and then you get into editing and you go, oh, wow, this is not really what I thought I was capturing, but something else is developing. We had 6 cameras rolling during the convention itself. And it was very difficult because people were, you just grab camera guys, and nobody knows this stuff. So, they're just, it's sort of like, giving a camera to a child who just simply films whatever is shiny. Shiny or, or moving or loud or, what have you.
They're focusing everywhere.
They're just focusing. And you're not there and saying, oh, I see something very interesting happening over there. You just send them out. This convention was 4,000 people. All right. And about a couple of hours into it, when we all got back together again, reloading and stuff like that, I began saying to Mike, I said, listen, I've been to a lot of conventions, but this one is different. This one has an energy and a sense of doing something special, something exciting. These people, these kids, think that they're involved in something quite new. It has a spirit, an energy, and I'm really concerned because that's one of the things that's very hard to film, to capture. And so I feel that we captured that. We captured that.
Yes.
So in that respect, in its totality, there's a lot of there were lots of behind the scenes differences of opinion and certain interviews that I just said we're just not going to use that. You get a 15-year-old who's talking about his parents. Sometimes he says things you kind of go, no. We're just not going to use that. We're not going to use it because he's 15, for God's sakes. It's when he's 17, he's going to go, oh my God, I can't believe it. So why? And again, while it has some dramatic potential, it doesn't fulfill the question. Why are 20-year-old guys watching a cartoon and 10 for 10-year-old girls? Everything has to go through that filter. If it doesn't go through that filter, then it's another documentary that somebody else can make. Yeah. All right. Yeah. Yes.
How do you see future television shows pulling from My Little Pony? You've mentioned a ton of things that were different about this show. How do you see future cartoons and movies and so on pulling from that to try and repeat the same thing?
Say it. How do I see future television shows pulling from the unusualness of this?
Yes.
Yeah.
Being influenced by.
Well, I don't watch anything. I barely watch the stuff that I've been on.
Yeah.
You should, it's good.
So I'm not really a good judge of that. I can tell you that television now, interestingly enough, interestingly enough, that the most edgy and fascinating work is actually being done on television right now. I think everybody tries to figure out what the secret sauce is. They've been trying to figure out what the secret sauce was for Star Trek. And understand that the industry as a whole is like, oh, phew, Star Trek. Oh, like that. But they're falling over themselves to try to come up with something that was, made back in 1965 and is still, ka-ching for a studio, a network, on and on and on. So I think that as our society becomes more tolerant, more accepting, in spite of a lot of forces against that, that you will see more and more shows like this. I mean, I love that image and what happens to an audience when a guy goes, I forget, I haven't seen it for a long time. Look at my painted fingernails. and as an audience member, you go, certainly as an older audience member, you go, gay. Gay. And then, but you discover, well, actually he isn't. And I love that in between. I had, when we first did it, I had people come over to the house, 2 couples, 3 couples at a time, to see the documentary. It was sort of come and see the documentary, you get a complimentary dinner. And they were people who were architects and lawyers and doctors and what have you, who consider themselves, and who are very educated and pretty progressive. And in all 3 instances, we did it 3 times, I got the same response. And also understand, they don't they of course started out with, you did a documentary on brownies?
Brownies.
You'll see. Just come over to the house, sit down, whatever. And what they would do is they would go through the same, all 3 of them went through, thank you very much. They went, at first I watched it from a observer position, thinking, oh, well that's them, and then there's me. And that's their journey, and I'm going to observe their journey. And what happened by the end of it is that I was going, no, actually the journey was in me. Because I was going, yes, oh no, really? And I realized that I'm the one who was going on this journey of what is, and it was pushing this envelope of what is acceptable, what am I comfortable with, what am I not comfortable with. And so for me, I like that. I think that that's a really interesting thing. That I'm having a conversation with you who have a wig on right now.
Yes.
And I'm just kind of going, I don't know, he's got a wig on. I don't want to shoot you because you have a wig on. I don't want you to, I think it's just fine, okay? Actually, I'm only, as a matter of example, I'm bringing it up, but I didn't even bring it up. It was just like, but I love the people who have to go like, oh my God, until you kind of work it all out and you realize, well, actually, the world hasn't changed. Nothing terrible has happened, and on and on and on. And so that's sort of what I think is going on here. Okay, yeah.
During the filming or any of meeting any bronies or anything like that, have you ever met a brony and actually heard some of their stories where actually some of them might have heard any seen any fan work that actually brought you into some sort of tear or any true emotional state? As I have with many of the works that I've actually just fallen in tears just from the work and the messages that the bronies and other people just put into it.
Well, I think we got some of them. The person who I was most, I thought was most wonderful was Daniel, right, the English kid?
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was a really interesting story. Much of the Brony community, I read a speech that I had to give at a convention actually a couple of weeks ago. The event wasn't going to work. It looked like technically it wasn't going to work out. So they had a whole room of people, and they said, well, what are we going to do? And Sherry, who works with me, said, oh, you want to do that speech that you gave for the colleges? I had to give a speech for the largest award for poetry in the world. It's $113,000. It comes out of Pomona College. And why they asked me, I have no idea, but they absolutely asked the right person. Because I didn't know how to read until I was around 12 years old. So I went through a lot of stuff about that. And in an amusing and, speech and what have you, I wrote about it. There are a lot of people in the Brony community that sort of come a little bit from that side of the equation. So in that respect, I have great affinity. Okay, yes.
Do you feel like with this show, do you think it's going to stop at, say, season 10, like, say, Smallville? Or do you think it might go beyond to, like,
Forever?
like a Simpsons, you think it might be like a Simpsons, that's just, it's all...
I can assure you this, is that the decision will be made more from the point of view of what the numbers are then it will be made
Yeah.
from whether this has some great sociologic.
No, I just figure in terms of like, like in writing, do they have it written out to so far that it's...
I don't know. I mean, I've only done 5. And this coming week, I'm doing another. So that'll be 6. So as you can well imagine, I'm not very close to the heat. Yeah. Yes.
Sorry. When it comes to the community, like, what does it really mean to you? Like, what kind of role does it play in your life?
When it comes to the community, what does it mean to me? What role does it play in my life? I'm going to answer this sort of obliquely. When I did Star Trek, I was a big science fiction fan. There's nothing that I dislike more than science fiction and comedy. And I was reminded once, 6 years into it, well, you kind of do a lot of comedy in science fiction. And I thought to myself, well, I don't really feel like I'm doing science fiction. Okay? Star Trek to me are didactic shows. For me, science fiction is, the science fiction I like is the Jules Verne survival, the mysterious island, which is a big survival show. And then all the rest of it has to be white knuckles. Right? That's my idea. I'm not interested in fantasy. I'm not interested in anything else. But I'm involved in it. I like this show to the extent, and I don't watch. I mean, I've watched 5 of it. I like this show to the extent, like the last one that I did. It's about jealousy. Okay. Well, you kind of go, well, 10-year-old little girls, they're going to be really upset about, having a friend, and then that friend has a friend, and they're going to be jealous. Yes, well, but I know 80-year-old guys who have a big problem with that, too. So I like the fact that I'm involved in something that has that sort of weight attached to it. But that's sort of where it is for me. I like the fact that I did this because I think that I helped give some space for a while to a community that needed the space to get their breath against the people who were making fun of them. But I wasn't going to last forever. It was just a little moment in the thing. So and I just sort of I operate project to project. I'm very much a project person. So I can very easily let go of something and move on to the next thing. I've been wildly general to your very specific question, and I apologize. Yes?
So I know when you were originally pitched the idea, you were just reading through and seeing the script and whatnot.
A little louder so everybody can hear you.
When you first got the script and you were just reading through and seeing what you liked about it, you're nothing went through your mind what am I reading? You're just if it's good, I'll do it, doesn't matter what it is. Well, because I know there's also technical aspects of what's okay, how is it going to work. I mean,
They needed the question. They needed whether I was going to do it right away.
Yeah.
So, to be honest, Lauren told me, I don't know, a year later, she said, well, we wanted this to be like Q on Star Trek. That didn't even occur to me when I read it or performed it. For the first 2 times, it didn't occur to me because I don't carry on that way. It isn't like I have one character in my life that I just try to apply to. So when I was reading it, and I had to read it quickly, I'm reading for whether whether it's good writing. I don't have to be, and I know already that it's a cartoon, so I don't have to be worried about it. I mean, I've read scripts where I go, oh my God, they're doing that. That's terrible. I'm not going to do that show because they're doing something really horrendous. But it's a cartoon for kids. I mean, how horrendous is it going to be? So I didn't even have to get to the end. I didn't quite have to know. I mean, obviously, I don't remember anymore, but by the end of the night or the next day, I had read it all. But so as to be able to turn around in a half an hour, and I'm a slow reader, page one, I can tell within a few moments how the words are constructed, how they fit, how it's sort of operating. Page 2, page 3, page 4, page 5. This is well written. It's just well written. So my decision was, this is well written, and therefore it's good material. For an actor, the material is everything. It's very difficult for you to elevate yourself above the material. We say to ourselves as actors, and it's sort of a word that we use all the time, how was it? Well, I'm turning shit into shinola here, which is what a professional knows how to do. Whatever your profession is, as you get better and better at it, you sort of know how to, well, in my case, I'll create a little diversion over here so that the audience is looking over here while we get around this problem over here. And then we'll be back on track. You just know, you go, oh, okay, I see what I need to do there. You're doing that. Are you waiting for something?
Unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, that's all the time we have for questions today with John Delancey. He'll be back tomorrow and Sunday. Thank you.